Well, it's not like it's not baby, he's having a good fun. Yeah, I mean, not like we need to call or. That's just my fault, yeah. Got two. No. The green folder, what am I supposed to do this time?
The folder, tell them you need to sign those certificates.
No, or. On it.
Yeah, but you need to sign them and just give them back to us.
We can put them in the certificate folder.
Okay.
I like this one. I like how.
I thought about doing something like. But I think.
Well, level 5, I should. Well.
But I thought maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Days we had to take a little dinner, but.
Like, they hold your whole thing.
I do.
No.
Yeah. Leave both things, just, it looked like, oh, you're out. Oh,
Why this one ain't working? Somebody else? Don't have no batteries.
Oh, they do. The only thing they do.
We got here, you're not gonna eat, we'll get it.
We're not sure.
I'm hoping I didn't lose it. This something you guys have over there?
Yeah.
That one.
Far enough along, we go ahead and start, we will. Why you still in? No, we'll do that. Yeah. Yep. Works for me. No, call the meeting to order now. And, Commissioner Boone, you lead us in invocation.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for being here. Thank you, Lord, dear Lord, for letting us go about our daily activities with a reasonable portion of our life, health, and strength. Father God, I ask you to be with us on this evening. Help us to be open and to listen and to take in the information that we are to receive to help us to make the correct decisions for the town of Siler City and the new endeavors that are coming our way. Lord, continue to be with us, to bless us and keep us. These are the blessings I ask in your name.
Amen. Pledge only and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. All right. Any adjustments to the agenda? Yeah.
On the consent, there's a typo. 3.2. That shouldn't say water plant.
Oh, you're right. We do add late.
Yeah, where's water?
Yeah, everything that's right. This.
Three point two should be wastewater plant, 4 million gallons. Upgrade project.
It's just total.
That's right.
I think-
That's right.
Is it not for water plant? It's for water plant.
The water plant. It was upgrade the water.
Yeah, y'all approved it.
What about the water?
It's already in the works.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was wrong.
Anything else?
Approve the agenda.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Yeah. Old bit.
I see why I missed it. I don't have the schedule.
We can real simplify it.
Yeah. On old business here, this is where we're gonna revisit the person, the policy thing, and there's only one thing in question, there. And, Mayor Pro Tem and I and Hank sat down and had a discussion about this. And to give you the Cliff Note version of it, what we came up with, what was giving me, pause or whatever it was, the word, insubordination. We all know that thing about that. What the conclusion, what we came up with was that, we don't want anybody who works for the town or anybody to feel like that they can't speak to a commissioner without there being some kind of surprise about that, as long as the, chain of command that's outlined in the policy has been followed.
Well, and to add to that, the idea and where we want to make sure that we memorialize this is that while an employee can feel free and should feel free to come talk to a commissioner, that as a commissioner, we ought to be referring that individual. Have you talked with your supervisor? Have you talked with, your department head? Have you talked with the town manager? And it's not our job to fix the situation. We can bring it to the manager's attention. We can listen and gather information, but it's not up to us to circumvent the chain of command in the administration. So that's the one thing we wanted to make sure that we outline and we get across and we memorialize with this policy, because the manager is the one that is responsible for executing the policy. It's our, we are setting the policy, he is executing it. But we made no changes to what was submitted.
Are we in a position to approve it?
Yes, we are.
I'll make a motion that we approve Article 9 of the town personnel policy, Article 1 through 8, having already been approved. Make a motion to approve Article 9.
And Commissioner Bailey, would you mind actually approving the resolution that's on page 5? Thank you.
Amend the motion. Also add that we approve the town resolution, town Sarasota resolution amending town Sarasota personnel policy as laid out on page 5 of our packet.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. Do we have a second?
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
Before we vote, Jennifer, we
Yes.
just want to make sure that we memorialize in the minutes that what I was mentioning around employees talking to commissioners referring the matter back to the supervisor, the chain of command. We just want to make sure that that's how we want to execute the policy and how we want to, as a board, operate.
Yes, I will make sure that's in there.
I went for more than that. Okay,
The motion and the
motion
second.
and a second. Any further discussion about it? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. And that motion carries. What's next? All right, presentation.
Gary Jackson's here. I know all of you know him by now. You all had a chance to meet him and done a little interview with you, and tonight he's here to present the findings he's had and talking with our employees, you on the board, and also community input session. So, turn it over. Thank you, Henry. Do I need to turn this on?
Yes.
I think Joseph is going to pull up his note. The first thing to say that I really enjoyed the opportunity to chance. First of all, I enjoy the opportunity to be back. I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with you and I'm a retired city manager that's still in my blood, my heart to want to try to help you and help move the community forward. So I truly believe that a lot of the success communities I work in, from Nashville to Fort Worth, Texas, build upon the elected body, setting priorities, and then we as staff knew what was important and what we needed to make progress. And we did. I'll talk a little bit about strategic plan, but I also want to thank you, each of you individually, for taking the time to interview. I think I enjoyed getting to know you as well as getting your feedback on certain opportunities. Fortunately, the mayor got called away from the governor's office, but most of them went really pretty smoothly. And I think you're going to be surprised. I'll go ahead and say this, that having participated in several of these as a manager and also facilitate strategic planning for other organizations, I have not seen the level of common interest you have. So I'm going to go through all that in detail. And it should make it possible for us to move through this a lot quicker. Because as you probably will know, and Commissioner Boone shared with me that their organization is going through. And usually this process of setting strategic priorities, goals to go with them, is at least a day-long process. We're going to try to get through this in 2 hours. And I'll tell you the shortcuts that I try to bring to this process, because it doesn't happen that long, particularly with the level of interest that you all have, the commonality of priorities. So without further ado, first thing I'd like to do with you is get some feedback on the agenda, the process that we go through to make sure you're comfortable with what we're doing. At the end of the day, what we want to come out of here with, what you want to have, are 5 to 6 strategic priorities and 3 to 4 goals for each of those priorities. And then we'll turn around and talk more about what I will work with the manager to bring that back to the resolution to approve. But we're going to try to get to the point where within these 2 hours, we will have your strategic priorities and 3 to 4 goals for each. Now, in order to get through that in 2 hours, we've got to stay on the time. Okay, so for the first 30 minutes, I'd like to share with you what I got from employee surveys, from the police climate survey, and a community forum that we held. And then I'll cover that in 15 minutes or less. And then you'll have an opportunity to answer a couple of questions. And if you want to start thinking about those, it's like, well, what difference does all this feedback and input matter in terms of strategic goals? Again, this is all in the context of, you do the employee survey, you digging in deeper in the police department, ask for some community stakeholders to show up here and say, well, what matters to you most? So that you can take that and take what you individually perceive to be the priorities and modify. Does it change anything? Does it reinforce what you thought already? Okay. Then we'll move into a discussion of sharing the interview responses that I got from each of you. Then they'll layer on top of each other, and you'll see where you have a lot of commonality and you have some outliers, some interesting or thoughtful ideas that may not have been repeated by other members. And we'll have time ultimately for you to affirm whether or not those themes, major themes that came from your individual comments that I grouped, did I do that well? Do you agree? Or is there a sixth priority? You need to break something out. I mean, you still want to get, even though there are 5 major themes, you may not want to stay with just those 5 things. But you don't want more than 6. So you start losing the priority. Okay? And then after we firm up what those priorities are, then it's a participative process. You have buttons in front of you. You're going to get to vote. Get to vote on. You got all these individual ideas. Some of them you share, and there's some outliers. And when we go through it, some other things, like I said, during the employee input, like, and your colleagues input, and they say, oh, I thought so. So we'll put them on the flip chart. And then you'll vote on what you think are the. You get to pick vote for 3 things in each priority. So we'll see how they group, and then bring back and discuss the result. That's the process we go through today. That's the agenda that I've laid out here. Does that work for you all? Okay, move on.
Yeah, I see it.
So just a quick overview of strategic planning. It's a common sense tool. If you save money up to buy a house, or you've gone to school, you have to have strategic. You didn't have to buy it. And that's what we're going to do for municipality. If you want to, it's a plan to move from where you are to where you want to be. It's a way to a roadmap. Where is it?
I don't know. It's being aggravating. Actually,
I love technology. Well, if you would just advance, could you advance it?
yeah, I can try. Nope.
Jack first.
Yeah, that's what it's doing. I have to.
All right, so quickly in terms of benefits, it does improve communication because you're going to be hearing from each other. And it's responsive because it is a plan from you. You represent the citizen. Right? It's participatory. You've got employee participation, you've got some community input. And I would add that some more participation might be a good idea before you adopt this. So coming out of today, I would say we'll get into action steps from here, but some way of posting this online and inviting people to give you comments, posting it on your website so that people can see it, would be a good idea. Then you can hear from those people before you act. Sense? Customized and adaptable. I'll give you a couple of links as we wrap this up. I mean, you can go see what Holly Springs has and Wake Forest has, and your strategic priorities and goals are going to look different because you are different. Your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats are different, and they should shape your goals. But I can tell you, it definitely works. It strengthens performance. It gets you on the right path, and it gives you and the manager something to make sure that you have They have monthly meetings with the department heads. They know what they're supposed to contribute and where are they. And then you come back here and have periodic reports, quarterly or something along those nature to see how are we coming on this. Right? That's what strengthens performance and gives you greater accountability. The department heads appreciate. Well, what do you want me to be working on? What's important to get done? I can't do everything. Nobody can. It's right. So the SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats analysis stage has been done. I said there's some effort to improve the participation, get more than people that showed up here at meeting more. A lot of communities, larger communities, particularly go to greater lengths to do information. The community surveys, attitudinal surveys, or even pay big money for national firms to come in and get a lot more data. I get a sense from meeting with you individually that you know this stuff, but it doesn't hurt to get some affirmation. That you don't. There's not a loss for knowledge. A lot of times work with elected bodies and they come from a special interest, or they come from a certain part of town. But I got the sense from all this is, oh, you're interested in oh. So the implementation stage would be, this is the draft where we're going at. Okay. And then the implementation stage would be after you approve it. Give your priorities and goals. Then the manager and the management team come up with objectives, measurable objectives for each of the goals. Make sense? These are priorities, goals, and then objectives. That will be the next stage. And the measurement stage is what I refer to as periodic. That's what this is all about. Really basic stuff. But you'd be surprised when you make your expectations clear how much you've done and not otherwise. So we did an employee survey. I'll talk about that. Police Department climate survey. Talk some about that. Highlights of the public forum and then go through your interviews. Now, that's the background. Any questions? Concerns about the background? What we going about this? I've been following this guy's lead, so I'm not doing the right thing. It seems wrong.
And I will say that when he says 75% response rate, he was basing that on with 100 employees.
80.
80?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that was probably hitting high. Response rate is probably higher than 75%.
60 out of 80 employees came in here and they filled out a survey. Okay, that's the 75% response rate. And I think they enjoyed it. Just like this thing with you, I mean, people want to be asked. They think, and I'll get into this more when I get into the responses. They think about this place. Work on that. But what they were asked to do, they were told it's all confidential. No names were taken down. But I did give them an opportunity at the managers and systems that they wanted to have a follow-up interview. We did that. Wanted to sit down. This is whatever level, what line, manager position. Everybody had that topic. And in some cases, it was specifically on the questionnaire. You want a follow-up meeting? Let me call you. I'm going to call, but 6 actually sat down with me and went through this. So we asked them to rate what the organization does well, doesn't do well. And just like with you, what that strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, suggestion. So what did they report? There's a lot of belief that the roles and responsibilities and their co-workers and the people that supervise them are great. I'm going to give you some the numbers that hold this up. I've never seen results in 5. Weaknesses, policy direction, and I'll talk about that some, compensation and communications. My experience, this is anecdotal, but when you ask employees to rate policy direction, almost entirely. It's about resources. About for you as a body are allocating funds. My department getting the funds it needs, program getting the funds it needs, I being well compensated. The financial planning that's going to help me do my job or reward me for the work I do. So those are different questions. Attributes, having good policy direction, and having are you fairly compensated was the question. Okay. In terms of communications, that was the weakness was they were primarily talking about up down. I did interviews with them. This is going to be reinforced in the police climate survey. You have a lot of employees who feel that they make suggestions and nobody follows. Listen, and they can open door, but that's not two-way communication. So that's a real important weakness to address. That's what they're saying. There's the complete list of attributes. I'll give you a little bit of time to let some of that sink in. The 80% favorable rating of supervisors, I don't think I've ever seen that level of confidence. As opposed to direction, which we're talking about management. Bill, I don't want to put you on the spot, but there are a lot of consultant reports going into private companies. Your level of confidence in policy direction, management, it goes down stair steps. Am I not right? Yep. Sense of whether that should be getting the message.
People at the lower end of the organization always feel they don't have the full picture.
And they don't.
They don't.
In most cases. Compensation, policy direction are at the bottom of the list. And I'll say those are financial decisions. The way they're interpreting the financial decisions that are made at this point. What were their suggestions? Let's go with whoever they saw as the weakness, right? Surprises there. In the interviews, you may detect, put Curtis on the spot on this one, but who do you think is more likely to have those listed comments? Managers or frontline?
Frontline employees.
Why would you say that?
You're not facing that.
Well, it's a little of both, but when you throw in the re-examining scheduling and remote work schedules, a lot more of the professionals are interested in that. The rank and file will tell you point blank, I don't need to sit down for an interview. I ain't paid for it. That was their interview. They walked out here. I mean, it's like,
That's what I was getting at.
yeah, I think that's what you were reading into that. But the members of the management ranks clearly support this process. I think you're doing the right thing. I'm going to come back and ask you what you think of that important survey and what difference it makes. But I'm going to go ahead and go through the police department climate survey. And this was disheartening to me, to be honest with you. That is a very low rating for them. 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. And that's normal, average. So there were some that were really low. Very few that were very high. Okay. The perceived problems, I'll just tell you, they feel like they're few and far between. A lot of good people left. There are a lot of good people that are still here, hardworking, dedicated, They're part of that, like my role and responsibilities. But we can't cover it. And they're really concerned. Unlike a lot of the employees group I work with, they haven't done the market surveys. But they know. They know other law enforcement agencies are paying more. They're getting here because their former workers are going somewhere else. They pay. So, the vacancies are spreading really thin. I thought for sure their perception of their workloads and work conditions would be lower. But I think that's just their hardworking, loyal people doing work, thankless work. But their working conditions are not really good. Who on a ship, supervisor, and how do you bring on new people? Lewis, not to put you on the spot, but I want to thank you. You put me in touch with some folks who've been in the DA's office downtown, present and past. And what they speak to is that relationship needs to be strengthened. Part of the problem, again, as we're covering shifts, they have a hard time. They see the effect on investigative work. They see the turnover as much as this. You've got people who aren't as accomplished. They're reporting that they brought training as important, and there's the employees don't feel there's a shortage of or problem with training other than they don't have time to go to. One of the things about, I don't mean to lecture you about turnover, but the true cost of turnover is recruiting, training. You can't put a police officer on the street tomorrow. Certification and developing the skills. There are a lot of HR studies out there about what the true cost of turnover is. And it's not just the service delivery. You're losing money. You turn out people with 5 years experience, and some people on board, they don't hit the ground running. That's what the VA is telling you. The VA were telling you is that people aren't prepared to do the book. They don't represent you well. Not as well as they could if they were better trained. And they can't train if they don't have more bodies. They don't have more bodies if they can't keep them on the payroll. So this compensation issue combined with the communications issue. It's back to the compensation and policy direction. They don't feel appreciated. They really are having a hard time with that. Their suggestions should be no surprise. But again, I want to thank you, Lewis, because you don't want to take your presence in the courts for granted. There's nothing that you want. You don't. Got to be well represented. You got to work with the communication. Say work with the chief and the command staff there as anything else. Community forum was really fun. It was a combination of people who live here, people who own property, and they, as you can tell, we're very much about infrastructure and how well the organization. And there are questions about how permits and plan reviews take place and those processes. Every time I've worked in, I've tried to improve the plan and permitting process so that economic development can go forward. And they're also well aware of the moratorium to a person. Live here, or just residents and stopped in, or they have invested in the community. They're nervous about whether or not they're going to get a return on their investment. So they're very well informed. Which the folks over here, but it was a limited number. This is. I think it reinforces some very important. So I'd like to turn it back to you. Does any of this raise any questions? Do I need to clarify if I covered it well? Are there any surprises there that need further explanation?
Not so much a further explanation, but it does raise a question when we talk about the climate survey in the police department. One of the things that we continually hear is that nationally, we see a challenge with hiring and retaining police officers because of the climate. How does this, to our scores, reflect what we see nationwide, or are we just a microcosm, or are we really we're following the national trend more or less?
You're following the national trend. The thing that sticks out though is the awareness. That hey, 2 articles about other jurisdictions in North Carolina that maybe January 1 salary. Employees know what's going on, and you get a reputation. So I would say the trends are there. The reputation for what it's like to work in a police department. I mean, if you've got folks, you want to keep them. Okay. This is what the assistant DA said. It's like you lost good people, and you've got some really young people who are coming on board and that they're surprised. The people that go into law enforcement, firefighters, they're the first people to go. Everybody else is going out, they're going in. And it's really hard to recruit right now. But what I'll tell you is, I'm not doing justice to this. I'm trying to hit the highlights, but I've provided detailed reports on the survey, as well as the climate survey. The climate survey was based on 14 interviews. Yeah, so there's a lot of in-depth information there. So I encourage you to read through those and encourage Hank to make those detailed reports, because I got analysis.
Because that's where, when I look at, the feedback, I mean, yes, absolutely, everybody, we want to pay more, we want to hire fast, we want to fill vacancies. But the challenges we're going in a certain direction. Did we get feedback on, do we have innovative ways? Do they come up with some innovative ways to hire?
Yes, and that is borne out in some of the comments that I got, which was there needs to be some recruiting process where you recruit, how you recruit. And this is not just law enforcement these days. We have a full-time person doing recruitment for the bill. We have 30 employees and we target years right now. We're losing them to other areas. But everybody's having recruitment efforts, and not just salaries, but also the family leave policy. Your the ability to work, different flexible schedules. Is a family-friendly environment. And this came up with general employees as well. But what you're seeing in terms of trends, and this is in the private sector as well, you've got to come up with ways to keep people on board. So you have leave benefits, pre-tax deductions, you have flexible work schedules. How are you making it possible for people to take care of their families? It wasn't at the top of the list, but how affordable benefits are, big issue. So, family-friendly organizations, employers of choice, employers of choice. Those are cliches, but what everywhere, private sector, public sector, organizations that want to retain their people are figuring out, just like you're trying to sell a product or service, how do you differentiate yourself in the workplace? You're not doing something special. If you're just bragging, you're going to suck. You know, obviously. But it's surprising. There are still a lot of people who see it as a calling. Want to go into law enforcement, but they want to go somewhere where they're appreciated. They want to go somewhere where they're fairly compensated, and they want to be able to go to the training opportunities and have succession planning. You have longevity benefits, and sometimes you need to get these performance measures in place, set some goals. Are you going to do gain sharing, special bonuses, things like that? Those are the trends. Those are the patterns I see.
Brand management.
That is brand new. Marketing 101, differentiate your product or service in the marketplace. What are you going to be known for as an employer? Other questions or observations about that? So what do you think stands out from what been provided that might influence anything? Reinforce what you were thinking or move you in a different direction? Here?
One way or another, seems like it's focused on money. Whether you say compensation, or whether you're talking about pre-tax deductions, leave, like schedule, you're talking about something involved in the benefits / compensation package. It's interesting that when you talked about recruitment, you segued into benefits. So when you talk to the employees, did they have any other ideas about recruitment, or was it all about something related to benefits? They talked about who's recruiting, how they're recruiting, where they're recruiting from, or was it just a discussion of mostly benefits?
Well, in terms of the surveys, again, I asked them those attribute questions, and then I asked them strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats. When you get the report, you're going to see a lot of, like I'm here, when I show you yours, I paraphrase. There are significant concerns from employees with children that the benefit coverage is not there. So it wasn't 80%, 50%, that those
You're talking about the health insurance.
those with dependents are concerned about the health.
I guess to qualify that, a lot of those that we lost, the children, they're not competitive in the market. And it's also, it does affect us when an employer may look to come to Siler City, because they may offer even better salary or comparable salary, but the health insurance is not comparable, so the employer will have to pay it. Effectively a cut of the health insurance if they have children.
Like, what does the town provide as far as percentages? Like, what does the employee contribute? What does the town,
The town pays for the employees.
but not the children? So basically, you had to pay everything. But anyway, let's say if I was a person working for the town and I had 2 children and my husband, at 80/20, whatever how much would that come out of my check each way? Just guesstimate.
Probably does it right on.
For family coverage, we divide it out over 26 payrolls, but the way it's presented to us from Cigna, for employees that weren't grandfathered in as of June 22nd, 2018, 19, anyway, it's $1,200 a month. For
What
family
about those
coverage.
that are,
It's half of that, 600. And those are very rough estimates.
But is that like 1 child, 2 child, or 15 children?
It's the same. If it's 1 or 10, it's the
So
same.
that's about what.
I think we cut the did this about 3 or 4 years ago because
We
of the
did.
significant increase in the rates. Wasn't that not-
Right, and so now those are passed on to the new hires coming on. And we have lost several potential employees because of that. I can think of two PD candidates that specifically that we lost because of that.
We did, I think that we cut that because we didn't have the money to cover the increase from Cigna.
Right.
Are we in a different financial position now? As far as our budget?
I think that's something we have to look at in the budget.
I don't know, we can answer that.
We can't answer that today.
But we are in Hank and I have a conversation with Cigna, this coming week, this week, I believe it is, about our choices of companies and plans, and with this goal in mind to make the plan richer in the upcoming year.
So as the mayor suggests, we need to move on. But what you're talking about is a goal. Goals that fall under building a high performance organization, right? And you don't even have to decide that now, but you would set a goal and expect measurable would be, are you doing a compensation study? Are you doing a market comparison of how your benefits similar employers on? Bring back and make a policy decision.
Well, it could be just simple. Does the town contribute anything at all towards the dependent coverage at this point today?
Only for those that were grandfathered in.
Yeah, I know that, yeah,
But at this
beyond that,
point,
that's
no.
different subject. yeah.
No.
So,
The ability to recruit people
and
really,
can that be done at different levels rather than all or nothing?
We've done it different.
there are tiers.
For children.
Oh, for
That's gonna be-
family, spouse, and just children, those are the
In a
tiers.
number of children, you can have different tiers.
Move on.
We did discuss that, and the county is, their provider,
All right, so we're staying on schedule. Thank you all very much so. And now it's time to start sharing responses that you provided. So we start with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's what I got from you. Those are my notes. Were there numbers that indicates more than one person? So something along those lines. Bear with me. I tried to merge these. Normally you put them all on. Pull them together, but I tried as best I could to group similar responses. So that's what you see as strength, individual. Weaknesses. Probably not many surprises there. You see morale there twice. Those were slightly different types of comments. Morale in terms of what we were just talking about, salary competitiveness. There was also observed, two of you mentioned that you see some conflict. That could be police and HR over recruiting. How people are hired, for example. Those for each of these, I really appreciate it. You all shared with me a lot what was behind these comments. So we're going to come back to these and you can elaborate on them for your colleagues, because I think you've got some stories to tell, some points to make, even where you may have been the only person that brought up resistance to change or inability to retain our younger generation in the community. Those are very important points. You know, they're not, weren't held in common, at least not, didn't come up in individual interviews more than once. Okay? In terms of opportunities, I think you all see that here are the path to growth. It's an opportunity to seize for Siler City. Challenges and threats. Just as opportunity is growth and development, what you shared with me is that you're concerned that the moratorium and your capacity to manage the growth. Grows stress. The thing that stood out to me that you hear more in a lot of other communities is concerns about the housing supply. I'm surprised I didn't hear more responses about that. Fairness and equity is also a very common theme in communities today, whether they're diverse communities or not. It's a big concern. A big concern. I forgot to mention, back under the employee survey, you'll notice there was an attribute that was under respect. 60% of the employees felt respect was a strength of the organization. 40% did not. I'd be concerned about that. Sorry. Concerned enough to sure you're looking at your grievance procedures. I can talk about that a little later. Like I said, we'll come back to those individual comments and put them under the strategic priorities, that set strategic priorities. But I want to go, before jumping into the vision statement, let's go back through these. May this surprise you?
Well, what surprises me, well, I won't say it surprises me, what stands out to me is the communications, our belief that communications are a strength versus what the employees are believing that it's not a strength. So that's something that is concerning, but something that we can, I mean, I think that's a fix, and that's a quick, I don't want to say quick fix, but it's something that we can.
I think about two different types of communication. So I think that's external communication with citizens, and I think the employees are referring to internal communication.
So what type of communication?
I think you were conveying the poor folks who said this to me, thought you did a pretty good job
Of communicating.
of communicating with the public. That's more a measure of communication.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're being pretty well engaged with you.
Fair enough.
And to that point, it's not uncommon for leadership boards and councils to put in the strategic priorities things they're good at. If you want to stay good, right?
The financial management, only three of us think that we're doing a good job of financially managing the town.
Or, well, it could be that others had a different view. They were less concerned about that and were more concerned about other areas. So I wouldn't necessarily say that. Again, I can't speak for everyone here, but
I think that was the case.
Yeah.
Other things came to mind
Yeah.
before financial management. It's not on the weakness list. The flip
Yeah,
side of that
that's-
coin.
yeah.
Okay. Well, not just that, but this is intended to prep you for goal setting. Same thing with weaknesses. Are you surprised at the counts? Are you surprised if we'll come back and ask you, is anything left off the list? But really, from what's there.
Well, some of those tie together. I mean, when you think about water and sewer utilities, water and housing supplies, that is kind of tangentially related.
Yeah. Albert, you've been pretty quiet. I'm gonna put you on the spot. What do you think about all of it? What do you think? Some of these are yours. You gonna class it out? Well, this is, I'm putting y'all on the spot.
I
for a
usually say
reason.
too much.
And James too, I think, I don't want to leave these without giving you what sticks out for me. Pretty clear what you're interested in. Interesting enough, in the community forum, there's a lot of interest in downtown revitalization. Making it as vibrant as it once was. And attracting people, having activity and people gathering.
So is it thought that that's separate from economic development? Because I consider them linked.
Well, this is saying, where do you think your major opportunities are? This is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, strengths. So you want to take advantage of your opportunity. That's the whole point of identifying opportunities. Again, like strength. You don't just focus on your weaknesses. You got opportunities you want to see. Use that priorities. And these can be things just like weaknesses that you don't think are going well, but the framework of asking this strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats is, what do you think is going to underline this? What do you think is going to overcome? If you set goals, you don't just set goals and say, here's what we're going to try to accomplish instead of, hey, you also think about what might impede your progress. So this is what you're telling me might impede.
One of the things that I look at is, when you look at the fairness and equity, I know you said that it could be that could have just not been another concern that others had, but I think that's something that we need to really look at as a board, is the fairness and equity, because we have so many different people that live in the town. And if we don't look at that part of it, then we're going to have a divided town. So that's an important piece that we have got to look at. Because if there is a lack of equity of services, interactions with people, then things are going to fall apart.
And you could just help you with underscore, I agree with you, but that's a personal point of view, but we have colleagues that share that as well. The two things above that, fairness and equity and educational opportunities and resistance to change, you could easily tie those together, right? Agree, Robert? See that? Yeah, so thanks for pointing that out. You're right, it doesn't stand alone.
One of my biggest concerns is the housing supply and demand, because there's nowhere to live around them. It's reasonable. And if we want to keep young people here, you're not going to be able to pay what some of these houses are costing. We should have affordable housing not just for low income people, but medium income people. Because everybody can't be a doctor, lawyer, or making tons of money. Some of us are teachers, or used to be, that didn't make a lot of money and still don't, but they want to stay in this area. But I can't see how I mean, I don't know what steps we could do to conquer that. I guess, what I'm gonna say. What can we do? I know a lot of people want to come in, they want to do some housing. I think it's great, but they're talking in a multitude of $300,000+. Unless they're planning on a lot of people coming in and making tons of money, people around here cannot afford it. It's going to squeeze people out, is what I'm afraid.
Well, you're taking this exactly where these comments need to go. And that is, if you're concerned about housing and you put it under economic and community development as a strategic priority, a goal would be identify how you can affordable
Make it
workforce
affordable for
housing.
medium.
You don't have to come up with a solution. It's a goal.
Right.
It's just like looking at the compensation we talked about earlier. You don't have to solve it, but if you don't prioritize it, then you're gonna get the attention. The majority may do. You don't prioritize fairness, equity, and adapting to change as it comes.
I just don't want this to be an area where we're squeezing people, where they can't afford it.
Let's see, that's what I was thinking. A lot of communities tie those together. Fairness in housing, fairness in educational opportunity, fairness in employment. So let's wait for these things to kind of get. Any other thoughts before we move on? So I want to move into the vision study. Try to get something done. And these are your responses to the question that was in the interview about vision statement. Responses were, it's either fine for now, open to looking at it. Then there were some others, 3 others said, oh, it may be time to look at it. Here are some of my thoughts about sharpening the word. So that's what I heard from, or no types of. I think you can go with this in a couple of different ways. This is decision. Options for the board to consider. This is not the place to write a vision statement. And it's usually best that, even with the Constitution, they didn't all sit down and write the Constitution. Committee that went and words to that. So you can say it's good enough for now and affirm what you've got. And say we've got other things we need to focus on, or you can agree to appoint a subcommittee of 3 members to update and bring something back when you get the strategic priorities and goals in January. Or you can set a date. Those are just some options of how you might process the input that you have.
I think we have the current mission statement, 10 years. Roughly.
No, I haven't been that long. So I know, I was on the board, I think, a year or 2 before we.
So maybe 7, 5, 6.
Somewhere 5, yeah, somewhere in there.
We were going to further look at it. I think the way we did it last time was a good way to do it.
That was back from me.
We workshopped it on weekends, many weekends.
Yeah.
All 4 workshops. I think we're going to do it instead of having a 3-person meeting. I would say workshop it. I think we got to get through some stuff first.
Yeah, I think the strategic plan is going to inform our vision. I think that's something, whether we choose to, maybe to reaffirm it now and then revisit it in the coming year.
Well, one of the 3 I felt related.
Yeah.
That 1 and 3.
Mhm.
I was just trying to get you a starting point.
Yep.
There's no right or wrong way to do it.
That sounds like a reasonable plan to me, one to read.
Reaffirm
Maybe
and
we-
plan a-
And maybe revisit it after, budget season or something.
Yeah, we plow through some of our.
Safe, prosperous, and vibrant community where diversity, innovation, and education drive success and global society.
But if we are doing, workshop, I think we'll workshop.
Heard that consensus?
That consensus we all
Yes, sir.
nod your head. Definitely, I hear it. Yeah.
Do we need a date?
At this point, I don't know whether we can or not. That's a good idea, though.
Yeah. Well, I
And the
think,
reason, well, and the reason why I was saying is, we can say we're gonna plan to update it at a future date, but when is that future date going to be? And how long is it going to be?
I think, you know, my 2 cents is that because we've got this strategic work, the strategic work to do. We're gonna, set out and we get into the implementation phase, and we're also in budget season. So I'm thinking that we start to really do this in the late summer, early fall. And that really, because that takes all of the planning and our strategic priorities, and then how do we bring it together in a vision? But I think that's kind of where my head's at.
July and August, because we finished the budget in June,
Yeah.
and hopefully, some of this stuff is behind us.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we've got the answer on the moratorium, the strategic plan is in the way. We've also committed ourselves to our individual, group, like all the little subgroup that we include. And those meetings will start. So, I think maybe.
Yeah, I see what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we had it,
Time.
yeah,
Yeah,
a
that
time
makes
frame,
sense.
because we can always say a future date, and a future date can go on and going and going. We need to have something set to say, this is what we're gonna aim for.
We should have August.
Why don't we start in August?
Yes.
I'm good.
Working with-
All right.
And, we don't, no, this is. We got meetings.
He hasn't been able to ask questions in a couple of minutes. He
I missed
got,
last month.
Tom back a bit.
I missed one. Oh,
I'm,
All right.
drive on.
Like this next line.
Hey.
Favor, Mayor.
Yeah, all I was calling. All other things. The moratorium.
It has
Yeah. And talked to him several times. We'll go down there and have a meeting. Never end. Fine. Thanks for the way, I don't know, we hadn't talked about it last. No, we won't be talking about that. We really all predicated on something to get that. Before we move forward. What did you say? I mean, a little. Wait a minute. Yeah. Where? Where's you want to get the silver like that? Well, from Greensboro to Grayson. We're making the attraction. Don't be careful with the bags. Yeah. I wasn't hope not. Thanks, Bob. Please.
Are you hot or cold? Oh, cold. No. You thought you. There, no.
Extra shirt.
Yeah, I'm cold too.
Yeah. They keep this one. I guess they're afraid they won't come in and kill hogs there, so. That's right, at least.
Hey, Chris. You bring that up. You got the pepper and a dice. Something. RSV.
It's been around. Yeah, RSV. Yeah. I mean, it's fairly common, it's respiratory thing, animals and everything.
There's like different ones I know. Yes. They taste like a thing.
On your face. I'm over it. Thanks, Steve. In fact. Yep, well, I'm gonna give you an increase, take up north with me. Okay, yeah. Yeah, he was here, for the weekend, he and his girlfriend. Yeah, I've met him at breakfast. Yep.
That's what they were hanging on the back of the, I forgot it because it got warm. It warms up during the day don't help you remember to dress appropriately, but it's cold outside now.
Oh, thank you.
And check these, make sure I got them all.
I sure enough will.
Don't worry. They only talk a lot less if you're on.
Okay. Yeah. What in the bag first? No.
Well,
About been eaten.
from here on out, I'm gonna do a lot less talking. This is, I'm gonna be on the show. So I'm glad you all are getting along pretty well now. That first part was largely presentation and answer. From here on out. That's why we have buttons, so that five who speak up higher than others. The message is still gonna have to be captured. Again, we're gonna get to 5 or 6 strategic priorities. We're gonna get 3 or 4 goals that are each priority, so. The shortcut is, I did look at, what you submitted. And try to group them under major themes. And I noticed there's break some of we're talking about with these things. So let me give you this is the jumping. Normally, in a process like this, you go around and say, well, what do you think the themes are that come out of this? Have 2 hours of discussion. Hopefully, now you get to critique what I put. But your comments, to me, seem to fall into 5 major things. This isn't the wording that you fine tune, but they fall into these themes. Sustainable infrastructure, enhancing productivity and staff development organization, engaged community, and enhance public safety. And what I'm going to go through is each one of those and show you your comments that go under. Okay, so you'll see how they lined up like that. You'll see the number of responses that fit into those things, and some of them could live other places. That's what you're going to vote on. So when it comes to responsible growth and community development, you suggested your goals that you suggested in the individual conversation. So a couple of facilitated questions are, what's your reaction? Surprises, or, comfortable with the things we're identifying? And then the next question is, can some of them be grouped together? Because you're going to get down to 3 or 4. So this is a group discussion there. So it's the board vote. We're gonna do this for the four other things.
With the first one, a comprehensive growth strategy include number 3, number 4, probably number 5.
Yes, you could say develop a comprehensive strategy, including revitalize downtown, encourage housing development, and update your own.
If we include those 3 in number 1, then we're already down to the 3 we need.
This is supposed to work. Everybody learn. Yeah. Education strategies.
So that was easy.
Does make a
Let's
lot
do
of
the rest
sense.
of them like.
No.
So run it by me again. So what would you?
Well, 2, 3, and 4, like it's like 1 A, B, C, and D, and then you have just put 3, 4, and 5. I'm sorry, 3, 4, and 5. You put it up on number 1. They're related. And then so you literally have 1, 2, 1. And those would be subsets for commas or whatever. Then you have 2, build and educate in the workforce. And then the 3 that talk about
Well,
the educated workforce is very interesting. We got 2 teachers on the board, and everybody here has been influenced by teachers. And it's always a question: how do we work with our partners?
I knew this was you.
Does that make sense?
If there's going to be growth, and if the businesses that may be coming in, you're going to have an educated group to be able to work with them, no matter what. So we're going to have an educated community workforce, and that's not just through 4 degrees or whatever community college. We're just looking at the growth and how we can all adapt to that.
Do you think we've never asked for a joint meeting with anybody in Pittsburgh or with any from the board of education? That we do that?
Kind of touched it that.
Yeah, this past Monday, you just said you couldn't be here. CCPC came in and did a joint presentation of things that they were working on in light of the economic activity that was coming and being proposed with Woodfeed, Benpack, and the one up in Randolph County. And they also outlined some programs that they currently have. And right now the focus was more about how we can get information out to the citizens or the people that live in the area. Because there's a lot of good things that they're doing already, and a lot of good things that they're proposing and working on behind the scenes with these companies. But getting that information out seems to be a disconnect or a stumbling block there. It's not just that's the part that's not happening. It did make a good presentation this past Monday.
Besides what you just said, we thinking about having a discussion with possibly school system board members, try to look at how can we change some things that's being done in the high school as far as having kids take more hands-on classes, being workforce ready, than being like taking the things that they feel that possibly, of course, the state of North Carolina says standards what they have to take.
Yeah.
But if we could just look at some possibilities, that's all I'm saying.
You're ready to build an educated community workforce in collaboration with the school district?
Yes,
Okay, that,
Because our school district does a really good job trying to, work with the teachers and the community.
Let me just say collaboration. with the department.
Yeah.
Because that takes in everybody.
That's everybody, even
Yeah.
the board.
Well, it's Chatham Charter, it's PPP, it's our school board, it's.
North Carolina Academy.
Everything. Yeah.
For the school system, part of it, but when you look at CTE or career and technical education, that's federal. But that would be your hands-on, your
Yeah.
innovation.
It's called vocational technical.
But that's about we need to look at.
Yeah, when I was going to school, even here, they have what, physical education,
yeah,
yeah, and woodworking, building, masonry, mechanics, I took a whole bunch of that stuff.
I used to have college.
Yeah, and that's right, you used to have cosmetology, and there was some business. I don't know what to call it, I never took.
You
like
had, the keyboard in there.
Yeah, keyboard moves the typewriter.
Is,
Typewriters.
Yeah, but you know, and all that stuff is gone, and I participated in some of that. Quite frankly, I've come back and that has served me more in my life. Some of the other stuff, I took some philosophy and stuff in college, a bunch of crap.
Well, I know when I was in high school, we had programs where you went a half day to high school. And the second half of the day, you went to, you actually went to it's almost like a community college, but it was Willis, we call it, was the VOTEC. And so you were in the bricklaying program, or you were in, the programming back when, COBOL was first.
And Fulton Smith had, what was it? He
It was
had
the marketing, it was
marketing
marketing.
where
But
you
it
got out of
was
school.
like you said, distributive education, which is different.
Yeah,
But that was it.
yeah, he worked, we got out at 1 or something like that, make it work or something.
Yeah.
It's a different part of it.
We've lost all that, but it's.
It's all gone.
lost anything, right? It's all straight.
Well, yeah.
Put all that. Anyway, okay,
So we got this one done.
I do it.
Yeah,
you can leave it at that or add to it. I think the thing to keep in mind is where is that?
Well, can we go back just 1 second because one of the things that we talked, let's go back one. Yeah, there we go. So community development. Community development to me is also sort of, as we talk about our mission statement, balanced government and an engaged community. How do we engage the community in that community development portion of it? I think that's something and maybe we have something later on around that, but we have to have an engaged community.
Well, that's where I was going. Actually, you make a really good point. Some of this does spill over. You have communication is on the list. So the two areas that tie into this is community engagement, but also utilities. I was thinking I would put up on the board sustainable infrastructure. You got those three things, and maybe you want to leave utility and infrastructure alone. But there are a lot of, and I'll jump ahead to community engagement, so you can see those and get a better feel. Back to that one. There we go. I put Parks and Rec here. Some communities put Parks and Rec under community development. Just, there's no perfect right or wrong way to do this. It's how you want, where you want things to land. Where it tends these days to come in under engaged community is because a lot of communities recognize they have underserved populations.
We expect to make the experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I put that there, that it can go different places. This is thought, you ought to move it around. Get where, get this where you want. Because it's a message, it's what message you want to see.
Getting community engaged is tough. We have we've primarily done it through creating more and more boards and committees that report to us, advisory boards, and we have a ton of advisory boards. You know, in the time that I've been on, this is a sad comment. The time that I've been on the board, the only time that outside of advisory boards, which is a select small percentage of volunteers, I don't remember this, we become really engaged, is when we had all the meetings about the Great Park plan, and what we were gonna do. And we have a lot of people. Outside of Parks and Rec, see a lot of engagement,
There was a lot of engagement when Mount Air first came.
you know.
I expect we'll see something similar with Wolf Speed and the planning, but yeah, how do we get community, how do we get the average citizen more engaged with the community? And the
You can set
companies?
it, let me- having worked in communities that wrestle with this as well, you can set, again, it's like solving the compensation issue or solving other, you can set a goal to expand, you gotta increase citizen participation and do innovative things. In Asheville, we did town hall meetings. We'd go to community center and we would move it around. And take your meeting into the community and make a special effort to invite people in that community to show up. You could do other kinds of forums. Other community, another innovative approach here is focus on events. Many events are a major draw, whether it's 4th of July or Hollywood Parade. And this is how communities differentiate themselves. Hendersonville, it's the Apple Festival. You know? So a lot of community engagement can be, you know, you set a goal to have a more robust and vibrant set of events and activities. You can have, most communities I work in, we further developed our websites and made them interactive and draw people in. The young people will go there. You have information. So you can explore innovative techniques in community engagement, or you can define the specific goals you want to have.
So one thing that you find is, you know, for instance, we were in the parade on Thursday. It wasn't cold, so I was able to. But the idea of going to them and being visible in the community would at least let them see, oh, they really want to hear what I have to say. So that means that I'll come and talk to them and listen to what they have to tell me. So it's one of those things where we're going to have to be open to possibilities and sometimes, like he said, go to them instead of us expecting them to come to us.
Well, it's interesting, you said that, what he said, I'm gonna share an idea that I've been kicking around in my head, and I hadn't really said anything to anybody, is that, when we're talking about, you know, we have a hard time even getting people to come to the meeting. We have half a dozen people at our meeting, we done real good, they don't participate, but the thing I've been thinking about was, like maybe, and this is just a formulation, it's a wild idea, is that like maybe once a month or once a quarter, we have something like coffee with the commission.
That's exactly it.
And have it somewhere, and it have to be an opportunity for anybody who wants to come and have it in different places. and like you said, and come and just talk about whatever you want to talk about. And each time, each one, it would be a different, it would be the same people every time.
Right.
It'd be somebody different to give the folks a way to know all the commissioners and, you know, start building a relationship with them. And also give them an opportunity to voice what their concerns is or something they want to talk about. And not just what was on our agenda. Now, of course, that's sort of like asking kids at church, the preacher asking, what do you think? And you'll get all kinds, but you'll know what's going on. So I hadn't said anything to it. It's just an idea I've been kicking around, but it sort of fits in with what this discussion is.
And that's great. How would I capture that? What would that goal be? Right, just take it.
Community engagement.
Well, it'd be, you know, a monthly, I mean, you call it coffee with the commissioner. I mean.
That's as good as anything.
Yeah. Establish a monthly forum.
Community.
Yeah, a regular.
Establish a monthly forum to be held in different parts of Siler City.
Basically like a monthly town hall meeting at a coffee shop.
Yeah,
Very important.
or to, you know, church, or, you know.
Because that was one of the things that, I had talked with the people from Habitat, because Westmont is one of the areas that I have as far as checking with them to see if they still had that HOA meetings, because that was one of the things that they were required to do. And that was the thing I was gonna do, was go to that and just go and introduce myself and see what was going on. So that's something that I had on my agenda anyway. So just going to them, that's something that.
The citizens where they are.
I also think that if we made ourselves more visible in the school system, or that the kids know us, you know, they're like, oh, that's Commissioner Boone, Tier 1, like, hey, Miss Boone, I saw you at school the other day, or it's our mayor, or that's Miss Bray who's mean to us when she substituted, stuff like that. You know, if we made ourselves more visible and in the schools, the kids remember it, they do.
Yeah.
But you have to place this out. If you establish it as a goal, with particular objectives, strategies. What I try to capture here, Mayor, is for your suggestions, establish regular, informal, mini forums involving there.
Yep.
You can define that later.
Yeah.
Along with the manager, and then, you know, you need to sign to set this up, and support it from the staff. Like, what else comes to mind? I just went ahead and opened all these up. The only one you haven't talked about is these two. But that's where we are. So I think you can just freeform this. If you think something should be added, that's great, man. That's what I think will make this better, is if everybody thinks the same way. And if you want to suggest something that comes to mind, we'll get it up there. Then you can come back with buttons and discuss it one more time. But let's try to get all the ideas out that people have. Anything else that comes to mind? Now, I'll just open it up. Let's go ahead and look at productivity and staff development, attract and retain quality employees, provide competitive salaries and benefits, training and succession plan. I didn't give a bird for that.
I would almost like to separate training and succession planning, because every employee can take it. Well, I guess theoretically you could have a succession plan for every employee, but that gets rather messy and cumbersome. But a succession plan, I think I would like to see a formalized succession plan down at least to 2 levels below department head.
That's, because I think I'd take that as different. Training is along the lines of some type of continuing education. But succession planning is so left in the lurch 3, 5, 10 years down the road.
Succession plans for management positions and training and staff development. Those two things.
Because for management and key employees,
and when I think about that, because not every employee wants to be a leader or a manager.
Right. Management professional position.
Yeah.
One of the personality of professionals, even though they're not management. This might need some work.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, we could tweak but it's whoever your key employee is in that particular department. And it's gonna be
We'll
different
get
titles
you,
for
yeah.
Mhm.
different departments.
Because the one thing that you don't, I mean, we talk about how do we take care of our high potential employees and how do we retain our high potential employees, but you also need to make sure you're retaining the average employee as well. I don't mean that like one's better than the other, but we focus on, up leveling the high potentials, but you forget about the people that are, doing the day in, day out
Well,
work.
I mean, the police department is a great example, because we still have although we don't have a mayor position, but we still have a chief, we still have 2 lieutenants, and we still have our sergeants. We don't have control officers. So that's a perfect example of talking about them.
Yeah.
But we gotta be focused on.
I'll just say, went through the wars, I mean, what essential employees were during the 2008 recession, was laying people off, and they were ugly. So I just included succession planning for management and technical positions. And you come back to this later, but I think key employees or professionals is not play well. Yeah. You're fine. The staffing, training and staff development, succession planning is now separated.
Mhm.
Anything else comes to mind anywhere on board? Whatever comes to mind, this is wide open. Can you see those? You want to get up and look at them? Sure. Got it?
So we're talking about the big goals being our strategic priorities, and the ones under them is the sub priorities or goals.
Yeah, we really haven't settled that. You haven't settled that. I mean, if you're going through this process, you go, well, we really need to break something else out. You certainly have the flexibility to do that. That usually occurs in the same way you just broke out training and succession plans. You go, well, wait a minute, maybe we need to break out growth management and community development.
Well, looking at being led by our vision and mission statement, and, the vision talks about safety and prosperity, diversity and innovation. We have stuff that touches on that. Mission is balanced governments, engaged community, dynamic partnership. And the only thing that we've really discussed about partnerships is collaborating with our educational leaders. Are there any other, we're going to be successful? What other partnerships do we need to try to nurture?
I think we're going to need to nurture relationships with businesses. And it's not just the businesses that are coming here, it's the businesses that are here already. And so I think about how can we at the same time support Brookwood Farms, just like we would be able to support, Mount Air and Wolfspeed, and what are these other opportunities? How do we keep our existing businesses so they don't feel like they're second class?
So
that gets back to the fairness and the equity.
I just wrote support existing businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, these are the businesses that supported us through the difficult times. We can't cast them off.
No. We took a step to try to do that.
Yeah.
That's the planning part. We need to still be focused on.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do.
And a lot of those folks are still here trying to help revitalize the downtown.
Yep, absolutely. I see in two different places. I see attract and retain quality employees.
Yeah.
And then I see enhance employee retention and attraction. They kind of fit. I mean, I see why you've got it in public safety because it's police department specific. But I think that it sits in the staff development, enhanced productivity.
Well, I didn't want to lose it. There was a specific suggestion about enhancing police. But if you got it here, you've got it.
Yeah.
You don't need it
We
twice.
wouldn't need it twice.
Good catch. So whoever suggested a specific area about public safety, hopefully you're satisfied with it, landing here.
Well, and the thing is, even though it is saying, you know, safety, there's still employees of the town, so, you wouldn't want to put it in both places. The goal is to attract, and retain anybody who wants to come and work with the town because there are vacancies all over, not just in the police department.
Can I come back to, comment about? Well, is this all about funding? You know, great example of another thing to consider is pursuing grant funding and financial partnerships. You know, would you get, much money was announced today? $2 million? It's just competing in the state court. There are also county monies that you can pursue. There are other federal funds. So I don't know where you want to put that, but I just wanted to tie those two comments together. That could be under organizational excellence, and you could raise this up to a higher level of definition, not just about employee productivity, but organizational excellence would be a way to.
I mean, you know, that's one thing that we haven't talked about. We talk about it is the operational and the operational excellence, the management excellence. I mean, I think that we're missing that piece here somewhere.
Some of that's about using our managerial expertise that we do have to create new partnerships.
I think
for further enhanced underutilized partnerships.
Well, yeah, to the point that was made in the employee surveys around, well, I say things, I make suggestions and nothing's acted upon. I think that's something that we need to pull in here because I think we need to foster creativity, creative solutions to problems. And our employees often are the ones that are closest to the problem. And how do we get more and better ideas for solving those problems out of those?
Because if you don't, it's one thing to have a suggestion box, so to say. But if you don't then take the ideas and do something with them, then people are going to quit making the suggestions because they're going to, like you say, they're not going to listen to it. So why do I speak if nothing happens? That's going to be the attitude.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I want to ask. You know, the two things I've heard so far of the employee. One was not listening to the suggestions, and the other part is the 40% of the employees don't feel like they're respected. And to me, those two things sort of go hand in hand. And I don't know that I'm not sure where that fits in on what
You're absolutely correct. Organizational and operational excellence.
I've seen in some other, your point, Bill, technology and innovation, creativity under this heading of organizational excellence. I don't know the exact word, but I think you talked to me a lot about that.
Yeah. I think and foster, and it's also fostering creativity. We did something at work recently, we called it reverse mentoring, where you had the most junior employees mentoring the most senior employees. And it was around creative solutions to problems. One of the things that we came up with was creating YouTube videos because one of the problems was our customers have difficulty creating trials for one of our products. And our more junior employees were like, well, why don't we just create YouTube videos? And we talked that out, and they were mentoring the senior employees because the senior employees had the problems, the junior employees had the solutions.
So foster creativity, innovation, and employee involvement.
Yeah.
You'll love this example. Guess who came up with McDonald's for putting a lid on coffee as you went through the drive-through after millions of people got burned? Somebody was in the drive-through. I paid consultants to come up with a solution. There was eventually an employee suggestion from an employee that worked at a window. Put a lid on it. Then they turned it over to people.
Yeah.
That's a true story. You can look it up.
Yeah.
You got foster creativity, it's there. And it's under the heading of organizational operational excellence. So I'm good with this. And this becomes a subheading.
That maybe becomes a goal, enhanced productivity. Maybe that becomes a goal.
It could be an enhanced productivity by fostering creativity.
Right.
So this goes with that.
And that,
These are about staff development.
that's supportive of our mission statement too, where we talk about innovation, creativity, innovation.
Yeah.
So we give the organizational excellence and we enhance our productivity and staff development. What else do we have? Enable training around there. So staff development and training, are those things then, or is that?
This was a recognition that both customer service and staff development are suffering from. Yeah, that's what I picked up from the conversation, couple of conversations were that we're not able to provide excellent customer service and get training done if we have so many vacancies.
No, specific to the police department.
Yes. But you could set a goal. I mean, this is.
So, okay,
It's still a position to provide this.
so there are two different things, though. When you're looking at field positions to improve customer service, but then we're also wanting to fill together to then fill positions to allow for professional training.
It's almost like if we,
Yes,
it's almost like if we fill the positions, then we'll automatically achieve the other two. So it's
Well,
almost
not
like we have-
necessarily, not necessarily. That, I think just because you have, and you're 100% staffing, doesn't mean you're not prioritizing employee training and development.
Right, and I think, really, I think they need to be separated, but how, I don't know. Where it says to improve customer service and then also.
Maybe we just take out the field positions part, because we have field positions, we have attract and retain employees, that's filling positions. So maybe on enhanced public safety, we just bullet point two things, customer service training, boom, just separate bullet points.
Yep.
Because they are different numbers.
Your goal would be to improve customer service and training.
Yeah.
And filling positions would be an objective or the implementation.
Right, that's what, we have to fill positions like, like Commissioner Boone said, we have to fill positions in all the departments.
Yeah,
So that more, I think that goes better under organizational excellence.
and And then that welcome all cultures and diversity of residents and visitors, there's your engaged community. Would it not fit under that? I'm just, I'm just asking. Because are we focusing our public safety on welcoming all cultures and diversity of residents and visitors?
That's what we have to.
So is that, does public safety welcome all cultures? Or are we saying that should everybody be welcoming all cultures and diversity of residents?
I think everybody should.
I think everybody.
Everybody should.
Not
That-
just public safety.
So do you put it under organizational excellence?
But
then?
public safety is the most visible.
It is.
Yeah.
But a lot of those two do overlap. Those,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you can almost combine both of those. Strategic goals, enhanced public safety, organizational operation, you can almost fold those together because it focuses so much on
Mhm.
employment and employee development. Retention, hiring, training, developing,
Yeah.
innovation.
And recognition, I mean, that's one thing I think, is around, it goes into the attract and retain quality employees. I would see create a formalized employee recognition program.
I think that would help the respect issue.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we have something, again, I go back to, what I do. We've created a budget at our geo level. And we have, based on different criterias, I could nominate one of my peers for a $25, recognition. The up to the VP level, or in this case, a department head could nominate one of their people for a $250. That's what we do. But there's certain criteria. It's not just hey, I'll give you one, you give me one. That's not it at all. There are specific criteria and specific things that go into that and around a particular award. But it's a quick way to do that, and it's formalized, and it's peer-to-peer, it's manager to subordinate, it's subordinate to manager for that.
We have been sharing in both based upon nominating employees that innovative things. That's why comes to mind when you say recognition program. Recognition program, it could be recognition and reward.
Yeah. Rewards
But,
recognition.
but you put provide competitive salaries, benefits, and recognition program.
I would almost do that separately. Providing competitive salaries and benefits is attracting and retaining. But I think the formalized employee recognition program goes more to that respect. It goes to that fostering creativity.
I'm gonna have to get some break before you come up here and vote. Rewrite this one. Just so it's clear what you're voting for.
Oh, we got to vote.
Well, I got a question.
Unless you fix it before you got 3 or 4 under each one, then you can say amen.
I got a thought and a question on promoting operational excellence and organizational excellence. So when I read the strategy and then the various goals that were or steps to achieving the strategy under the strategy, it feels to me, as I read it, feels like it's per department, and it applies in each department. But then it begs the question okay, well, if we're developing each department is operationally excellent, how do we develop it across departments so that departments work well?
Sharing the best practice, it's best practice sharing.
So we need to have, I think we should have something like that in there, best practice sharing.
What? I guess maybe we need to explain this all the way down. Once we have the strategic priorities and goals, we'll have action plans at the department level where we set objectives and performance measures to show we're meeting those objectives that are directly tied to the goals. We'll even have a chart that shows the delineation of how the action plan ties directly back to the goals and strategic priorities that you have.
So it would be the responsibility of each department to, directly link their action plan to what you come up with.
For each department to link it, but I'm talking about cross-departmentalized excellence. How does finance G-Haul with LPA or Public Works? How does, human resources work? How do they work well? How could they work better with fire or whatever? So we promote collaboration and cross organizational excellence. We have organizational excellence within this department. Probably we need to have it in the department, in the town overall.
Yeah. But no, it was like, how would Chris share best practices with chief? Right.
Promoting interdepartmental collaboration.
Yeah.
How's Public Works gonna work with Parks and Rec? There's sometimes they cross over.
Well, you check it out, exactly.
A lot of departments are gonna be able to check that.
Absolutely.
What's gonna happen on this one, is you're gonna set an item,
Well, that's,
and yes, that's where the buttons go, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, you got the most votes, but how do we fold and kind of that.
well, and the provide competitive salaries and benefits can be forwarded into attracting.
Attracting,
Go ahead and do that,
retaining quality employees by providing competitive salaries and benefits.
I really gotta do that. These are all great ideas. For what it's worth.
Yeah. And
Maybe
you-
if you're, yes.
and if you develop an employee retention program, that falls under retention too.
I think we found one of our big hot button issues is staff, is around the staff itself. That's investing in our greatest resource, our employees.
Yeah.
But one thing we haven't, and I know I'm just looking at other ones, sustainable infrastructure. Can't quite see that, but
Could you move that?
Yeah.
So everyone can see that? Can y'all see engaged community? Does that need to be?
I think we've already hit that one.
Yeah, we did that one pretty good.
Good on that one.
Yeah, I think we're good on that one.
So since we have a check, we don't have to vote, right?
That's right. Consensus counts as a vote. Mayor, that goes to you.
That works for me.
Okay.
Is sustainable infrastructures foldable into responsible growth? Or you view that as being separate?
Well,
It's hard to fold that under.
well, I think you're good, well, but you're right. I mean, when you think about responsible growth, we look at, if we're talking about developing a comprehensive growth strategy, you have to have infrastructure that has to get folded in with that. You can't have the growth without the
You can't
infrastructure.
have growth without those issues
No.
right there. Without water and sewer, you're not gonna grow.
But is it all about growth? Is it about having a drivable mobile community and taking care of neighborhoods and infrastructure, whether, so you've got. Sustainable infrastructure is, you pointed the engineer over there, you've got, your systems have got to work. Not just the growth.
I would look at it as, even though it can go under there, but I would still look at it as a separate. I would look at it as separate.
It's so vitally important to the whole town. Not just the growth, but even the existing residents.
Major things to do here, right?
But you have to,
So you said it's over here.
I said, you gotta fix this first, before you can go over here.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and in order to upgrade and expand water and sewer utilities, you have to first resolve moratorium issues.
And it's gonna be sustainable, you gotta fix what we got.
And does
Not just expand, we got stuff in the ground.
We don't even know it exists.
World War II.
while you're on that, I won't pick on anybody, but this implement the Tarper comprehensive plan, does that go under sustainable?
I'm not sure what again, I don't know enough about the Tarpo comprehensive plan for me to say where it belongs.
Personally, like it really is, I'm on that committee. But I mean, that's my opinion.
What else?
So I want the 300 sustainable infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like, I think the one we have the most work on is figuring out our bullet points under organizational operational excellence. I think a lot of stuff can be folded up into track and contain. But, there's just a lot of meat on that bone that we gotta get through. And it might be on that one, if we determine that that's the part of the strategic plan needs the most work. Maybe we do have a few extra steps on that one. Maybe it is 3 on the others, but maybe it is 5 for that.
I got a suggestion for you. Have Hank get a standard. Bring it back to you. Because this has to work together.
Yeah.
It seems like almost every time we go post that it's on. So I think there's a lot of improvement we got there.
Just not to throw a monkey wrench in this, but also a lot of what's learned out here tonight, a common theme is we need to do more, and more means spending more money. So we're talking about sustainable infrastructure, but we also need to have financial sustainability. If we can spend money to solve all these things.
Can I put that down?
And go broke doing it if we don't make sure that we've got the revenue.
Yeah.
Sustain
No,
that.
well, I think that, well, to me, that almost goes as that's table stakes. We can't do something that's not financially sustainable.
Right.
So, you know, that, I mean, that's, yeah, you gotta have that for, you can't.
I just say
No, I know.
that we can achieve these goals, but do it in a way that's not sustainable.
We have to be financially responsible, sustainable, and
Fiscally responsible.
fiscally responsible. And that's the way that's a great catch-all for all that stability, sustainability, and fiscally responsible should be achieving.
So this looks like a lot, but really some of these can be.
So when it says sustainable infrastructure, and I understand that over here that you just added, but are we going to go along with what's under sustainable infrastructure, or do we need to add, take away, or do anything there? Because if we okay with it, we can have a change.
Well, I think we need.
I guess I would say sustainable infrastructure can also include public facilities. If you get to the point where we're talking about things like renovating the town hall, upgrading and improving other town buildings, we know we're gonna need more when it comes to public safety, parks and rec master plan, actually the implementation component of that.
Yeah.
I put that up here.
Implementation of Parks and Rec Master Plan.
Or just, but it's not just the Parks and Rec master plan, it's
That's why I said public
capital
facilities.
improvement. Yeah, let's use capital improvement program, because that covers all of it.
Yeah.
But we do, but then it becomes the financial, fiscally responsible bullet point under organizational operational excellence also then applies to almost, you could argue it applies to all 4 of
It
those.
does. Fiscal responsibility is the underpinning of all of that.
So should that then, if that is the underpinning of 4 of those, I'm just throwing this out there, should that then be a strategic, overriding strategic goal?
I don't think it's an overarching, I think it fits in as a, if you're gonna write a goal, it's, implement the capital improvement plan in a fiscally responsible manner. I mean, that's how you're writing it into
Into each one.
it, in each one. And the same thing, and from a fairness and equity perspective, is is a goal within each area of doing it in, with fairness and equity as a pillar.
Develop a growth strategy that's fiscally responsible.
Mhm.
On that first one. But yeah,
Implements, yeah, fiscally responsible and equitable fairness. Ready to put a check on this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can check just about all of them except for the big one.
Yeah, that looks
Yeah, that's a
good.
big
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
You have all you want.
You're our major.
I might suggest you separate improved customer service and
Enable training.
That's what-
Yeah.
I'm thinking enabled training is about building the department.
Mhm.
We could, and if we did, we still have three, we had customer service training.
It's not training, it's building the department.
Yeah.
And then you come with strategy.
How are you gonna do it?
It stands out.
Yeah, it does.
Good on that one?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Hank and I'll work on this.
Okay.
Back out to you for comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll work?
Yeah, perfect.
Sounds good.
We did it.
Boom.
2 hours.
My dream. You're gonna watch it live.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. I think y'all are great with.
Yeah, do we get?
Yeah,
Do we keep our dogs or you
I keep it as a momentum.
That was very good, very informative. I think some of the things we saw sort of already knew, because there's lots of new things. And there was a lot of good suggestions from all the board members and everything else. It's good to have that candid discussion with everyone. We need to do more of that, so. All right. Are you done?
I want to take you to the future.
Oh,
So you got the drafting, you did the work on strategic priorities. Strategic priorities, the next steps. Work with Hank and take these to prepare the draft. It's gonna be a two-step process. We'll shoot out to the organizational experts ones and then pull it in. I suggest, like I started this off, that you post it. It can be on the bulletin board, so you don't want people to walk it. Just put it out there and invite people to comment on it, however you think it reaches most people. But Hank also needs to share with employees. When you start their please climate survey, and then you come back and get it to like annual meetings. Early February for labor. Use at that point and say, nail down the implementation strategy. Measuring and monitoring. Periodically report to the board. And I think you'll find is in other communities I've worked in, this would be something you want to revisit on an annual basis. Yeah. Because you're setting goals and sometimes things aren't affordable. You get a national 2008 recession hit, you scale back a lot. have some important things going. Give it that. Sometimes scaling things back is harder than
I just wonder, going back to the seeking public input, what are other successful ways that you've seen other towns that have gone through this process gather public input on the plan?
one of the things that really, you touched on, the only citizens that you can count on are your boards and commission members. I would have this on each board,
Put it out to each
board's agenda to select from staff, review it with them, just like you review it with the departments.
You know, we could put it out to EDC too.
We could.
Yeah, circulate it for comment before you file. If that's the way you get.
And no, we don't do it soon.
Craig.
Craig's on there, not.
That's Craig, for input.
In some parts of the community. Well, I'm looking at it. The black churches, take it to Sunday school or the socials, you get a lot of feedback, right? Right. We got Nashville and made a big difference. So you all individually, without trying to undermine each other, I mean,
Yeah, we
don't
could,
be political, but.
so, like, as, for example, you know, the immigrant advisory committee, just form that committee. Give every committee a copy. We ask them to assist us, give them, contact our preachers. Ask them for assistance.
Nonprofits, you know, you talked about partners up there, maybe you think about those are the people that you want to get.
Some of our nonprofits, Boys and Girls Club.
Yep.
They touch a lot of lives.
Really.
Just thinking outside the box.
Yep.
There's one particular retired pastor who was very, very instrumental in town, Reverend Gray. They asked, they will ask you, you know.
I'd also like to get the schools input. I mean, get the input from, from the high schools. Well, I can work on it. Although I'm not. 11 years, dude. 11 years.
Eventually, you want to have a finished product.
Eventually,
You want to have a,
make it sound like so far in the future.
well, eventually, go look at these products. They're on their web pages. And, you know, it's doing a slick product. It can look good. Put some photographs with it. Something you're proud of. It's an icon that has this on your website. But I think you want to get there eventually. I'm not an artist, but I don't know where you turn to for. In terms of innovation, I also hired interns. People at the first website in the state of Missouri for a municipality, a little town called Liberty, Missouri. And I hired an intern who based HTML before that web page was there was even a company to do that. That I would something you should be proud of, and something you tell people. Get it out to them into that quality product. You don't have to do that. I say eventually, you don't have to do that right away. But you want to be able to. And you're getting there in a hurry, really. And I said at the outset, this month consensus on what you want to do. If you all can go out and say, we're working on this, build up support, it'll go a long way to application. It gives them something to talk about that you.
You're getting all this down soon to be in the paper. You're getting it down, aren't you?
There you
That's the
go.
paper. Keep talking. Keep talking.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Do we have a closed session? We do? Okay. Well, we thank you for everything you've done so far. We will see you again. Yeah, so I reckon we have.
Yeah, I make a motion to go into closed session for pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143(3)(11).
Second, are we taking a break for closed session? We're rolling through.
How long will closed session take? We'll take a short break, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a vote. All those in favor of going to closed session? Aye. All those